to the people. Why the world is so evil? Why can't you cool? Hey, just let me.
I'm here with Soldier, who's a visual artist, Mowalola, who is a designer, and Obi, who is a musician. And we're going to hopefully have a very generative discussion about creativity as it relates to the Nigerian modernists. But I wanted to ask you guys kind of very broadly, when you hear modernism, what comes to mind, and can you kind of recall your first encounter with the term? Was it in a kind of UK context or Nigerian context? Maybe we could start with you, Soldier.
I mean, I kind of went to school for like arts, so I remember like in my visual art class, I had a teacher tell me what modernism was. I think modernism to me is like a new way of kind of like seeing things, just understanding that the world has changed and like things right now are like quite different and modern or contemporary. So for me, it was always coined in like a very Nigerian sense of like kind of looking at things.
Yeah. Moa, what about you? In terms of fashion, is there like a sort of modernist period, or did that not really
I feel like it was, for me, is when I actually grew up in Nigeria, and then we were just seeing more like made in Nigeria promotional things, and before it was very much like a lot of like white people on the billboards and the adverts, and I felt like there was just a new push of like being proudly Nigerian, and us actually having our own clothing stores, like our own shoe stores, just like manufacturing our own products. So that was like kind of exciting, especially just watching it from my mom, who's like a children's wear designer.
rough and tumble?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it was really exciting for me because like, yeah, we were doing fashion shows when we were kids and doing our own like concerts, and it was like, I don't know, it was just like a very exciting.
It's like your idea of what is modern was so rooted in your experience of growing up in Lagos.
In Lagos.
Yeah. Yeah. Obi, what about you? When did you kind of first come to the term?
I heard the term first when I was in college. I went to college at Kingston College here in London, because I did art, and I remember not really understanding what it meant, because the direct term, the direct definition of it was just something I never really like understood or felt. You know what I mean? But to me, in regards to like music or art or fashion, I guess in any sense, is the idea of tacking on to or adding your perspective on what has already been. So you're furthering the craft of the art form.
Kind of like adding to the narrative.
Yeah. But the idea of modernism, when it's more like when people put such like a staple term on something, it kind of I kind of run away from that thing.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where it came from, and that's where I am with it.
And in the context of this show, which obviously a lot of the artists were creating in the sort of post-independence era, was also such a brilliant time for like Nigerian music. Yeah. Are there any musicians kind of from that period that you reference?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like Fela Kuti, obviously, Sunny Ade, that whole era of like, you know, Nigerians or Africans making their own music. Because post that, or pre that, sorry, it was more like the jazz or the classical, or even there was a point where it was like very lenient on American kind of like rock and roll or like pop music at the time, like bluesy R&B kind of thing. And then people like Fela Kuti changed that narrative by infusing traditional African music with, I guess, what was the jazz and the pop at the time, and creating this merging those two worlds together and creating this really fantastic, beautiful new thing. And that to me is what modernism is. You're adding on to a lineage of something rather than like, I guess, just soaking in it, being in it.
And it's exactly what the artists in this show were doing as well, in terms of painting and drawing from Nigerian indigenous cultures and fusing it with sort of like Western modes of painting. And what about you two? Do you draw on any creatives from that period in your respective fields? So obviously, Soldier, you're a painter. Do any of the artists in this show influence you? Or?
I mean, because I'm Igbo, I kind of grew up like hearing about like all the Nigerian artists from Nsukka, the Nsukka group. and like the painters from Zaria. Like for me, like it was quite impressive when you'd kind of hear stories of like artists in the era where like the British government like kind of took rule and like kind of taking things from Europe and like kind of adding their own twist. And I feel like that's what we're doing now. Like as a painter, that's like, I guess, the framework of most of the things I do. Like if I do a painting of like a mother and a child, it's like my mom. Or like a picture of my sister who is Nigerian. Or like I make a work and I name it something that's quite Nigerian. But I did this without even thinking about it, because it's just like who I am. And like it's just me taking things I kind of learned from Europe or from the UK and just adding my own little twist. So yeah, I feel like there's a thread and there's a common line, but I feel right now it's beyond modernism. It's more like a neo, like a postmodernism, because now we're not bound by having to make our things inherently African.
Absolutely, yeah.
We could do jazz, or I could paint, I could do conceptual work, and it doesn't need to look African. So I feel like it's just like taking a step further.
Yeah.
Moa, does that resonate with you at all in terms of fashion? Did you find yourself, maybe when you started out, continually drawing from Nigeria? Is Nigeria sort of a main point of reference for you? And is Nigerian history, sort of modernism, that kind of thing, does it come into your work at all?
I feel like it's like been on so many levels, like, and it keeps like developing. So I feel like the first time I even just like was into fashion was in Lagos, and I'm just like making things because I feel like it. And then I feel like when I went to the UK to actually like study it, it was very much in like a whole white context, and like even watching like magazines or whatever, it's like me, when I was gonna design, I was getting like white people's skin color pencils like to like draw and stuff, because you didn't really see like yourself in that side. Yeah. So I think going through like CSM, I was just really trying to figure out like what do I care about, like what is important to me, what do I want to see more in the world. And I realized like growing up in Nigeria, we didn't really learn any of our history. For some reason, I guess it's because of like the Biafran War and the pain that's there. But I feel like learning about those pains is important, because like you can't like erase. And it's like we still have a lot of trauma from a lot of things. So it's like kind of need to like face them. And so I like did my dissertation on like Nigerian women from like pre-colonial times to now, and just like really found out like what was happening in like different cultures, like Igbo to like Yoruba and all that. And I just learned so much, and I feel like it gave me like a whole new sense of like, you know, my history. And I even went into music as well. And like I used to always know Fela Kuti. I didn't really know anyone else at that time. And then I found out about like the Lejadu sisters and like Michael Onyebo. And like, I remember when I saw one of his album covers with like all the mics, I was just like, wow, like this is like one of the best things I've ever seen. And it's like I had to go through a lot of just to,
to get there, right?
To just find that, like that, the work that went into like finding all these like random archive websites or like these Discog music.
It's not that accessible, actually.
Yeah, it was like I had to really, if you really wanted it, you could find it. Because there was this Discogs website where they had all the cover art of every like African song made like in the past like century. So like I was just like in awe, like seeing all these things that like my parents don't even know about. You know, but yeah, I feel like we need to like have more of that. You know, or like celebrated.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I feel like those things need to be catalogued a lot better.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have people, I don't think we have, I don't think there are a lot of people that take the time to actually like find those things and put them in a place where you can actually discover them easily. Because I remember when I was looking, this is years and years ago, I was trying to research the Ekbe community in Calabar, where I'm from, the ethnic community, and I couldn't find anything about them. And this was like, and I was like, why is there no information about these things? Do you know what I mean? And these are things, cultures and traditions that are very important to people who are there. But if you're not there, if you've left, and you're trying to dig in a bit more, there's minimal information about these things. So like seeing the work today, like most of these artworks I had no idea existed. I didn't know, you know, a lot of these things existed. So it's good that, you know, we're in a position now where, you know, we're having this conversation. You know, if not, I might, you know, turn my nose up on the idea of modernism. Like, I think I think it's a start. You know, I think having the context, having it in this context is a start for something that could be a lot greater.
And each of you have kind of talked about ethnicity and kind of indigenous cultures. Is that something that you think about in your music at all? Enjoying from pre-colonial history?
I'm of there. I'm from there. Do you know what I mean? I think once you start thinking about, if you're trying to showboat your identity in a way that isn't honest. I'm of that place. Who I am is that. I think to further that, you just have to be the person you are, and use the influences that you've garnered over the years to push that thing forward. Do you know what I mean? I guess that tracks back to modernism. It's like trying to add on to the lineage that you've come from. But once you start, trying to pretend to be this thing, look at me, I'm African. It's like, bro, like, you ask. It's okay, what next? Like, how are you pushing that forward?
Yeah, one of my earliest memories was my dad telling me about the Biafran War. I think at the time when he was telling me about that, I was very like, what are you talking about? Like, but then once I came to England and I started making work, I couldn't really run away from the fact that there's like this trauma and pain that my parents went through. And also I had like a driver at the time who, he used to get really drunk and drive us, but but he would talk about this war. But he used to fight in the war, and he was like a child soldier, and he used to drink because of that. And it was like, I used to spend almost like 6 years with him talking about this war. So at the back of like my subconscious, even when I made work, I was really aware that like my sister, like myself, my name, my dad's name, my mom's name, like it's all like a effect of like what happened in the past, and like the scars that they carry kind of seep in to my work without me even knowing, like very subconsciously. So I think it's very incredible how like trauma and pain is like passed down without you even knowing it.
And then if you become a creative, then you end up sort of like digging
just
it
like
up
digging it up, because
trying to explore it in
I feel
your
like
work.
creativity or like making work is actually like reflecting. Like you spend a lot of time thinking about like who you are, what you are, and what you're trying to say. And so like, it's easy to kind of go back to the past first before you take into the future.
Before you move forward.
Absolutely.
I mean, sometimes I feel like subconsciously I'm making things that I'm not even understanding yet, and I feel like most times like after it's like done and I look at it and I'm like, oh wow, like low-key, this is what I was trying to say to myself.
Recognize it's significant. Because that's what I was saying, is like we're of that. Those stories are things that, even if they're not conversations that you might be you might have been having like really seriously with your parents. These things are things that happen in passing. Some uncles in the living room, they're talking about it, and they're like, oh my god,
that's fun.
But they, I feel like our parents' generation, I feel like they have a lot of fear, because I feel like they really do push back a lot of things.
They do.
And I feel like it came out in like even the way they like beat kids when they're growing up and stuff, because it's just like a lot of things that they're not talking about.
Suppressed. Looking at the context that we're in now, what do you think it is that you as creatives, or just we as Nigerian young people, the youth, what do you think it is that we are rebelling against? Is there a common force?
Everything. I think the problem is like, not only are we like fighting against like past trauma, but like we're also fighting against like even our leaders, the government, like, women are still treated like, secondary objects in Nigeria, like, people always respect their elders, although their elders are quite like backwards. So there's a whole backwardness like many people are kind of fighting with, many youthful people are. But I feel like we should just break boundaries. I feel like that's what's happening right now, because I only respect people who show me respect. I don't care if you're 50, if you're 80, if you're 100. I don't care about that. So I feel like we're fighting against like a lot of things, and it's great. It's good to fight, I think. I think it's good to have adversary. It helps.
Yeah, I think a lot of Nigerian youth that I've been seeing have also just been like putting a lot of their personality into the way they dress. And I think it's just been really beautiful to see, because I feel like once you have that like you know, relaxation of like, okay, I can look how I want to look, then like everything about you really shines. And like growing up, it was always like, oh no, you can't do this with your hair, you can't do that. Like even girls in like boarding school, you're gonna have 6
so much conformity.
You have to shave your hair. So I feel like now
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, they've gone past that, and then now they have all this mind space to think about other things like, oh, what do I want to do? What kind of creative stuff do I want to get into? So I'm just happy to just see the...
I mean, I went to like an all-boys Catholic school, and they used to make us wear like sweaters and blazers.
In Nigeria.
It's called St. Gregory's, and I was confused because like it's so hot, and I'm wearing this blazer that this English guy
proper.
told us to wear
mentality is
like
passed
since
down.
then till 2011 till now.
Yeah.
I was just so confused, and the blazer was green and purple. I was like, who made
What do you want?
I wore all whites. I'm like,
So like we're teenagers, why are we
wearing
wearing ties
ties?
every day to school? Like you're already getting us like ready to join the like 9 to 5 like
the whole
slavery.
regime.
Like.
I'm finished. The 9 to 5 doesn't even exist. That's
Boarding
the funny thing.
school in Nigeria is like military. It's like big in the military. I remember like in my school, I went to a federal government college, boarding school, and the girls would have to shave their head. The boys would have to shave their head. If you had an afro,
You're
they'll
cooked.
wipe you. Like, they'll flog you
And it makes no
crazy.
sense. Like, how
it's
would you go against the one thing that's like a pride to like an African culture, which is your hair?
Which is your hair.
How would you tell someone to cut your hair? How would you tell a
but
black
you
girl
just-
to diminish her beauty when like, American schools they keep their hair a certain length and they do whatever they want to their uniforms? So it made no sense to me.
All the history laws really affected everyone because like my mom didn't even know how to do my hair when I was growing up. Like it was just like you're 3 years old, straight into the relaxer. Like you know, like they didn't really have that like information of like how to even deal with natural hair. They just wanted like whatever was easiest to deal with.
Your hair is difficult if it's not straight.
Yeah, like the hairdressers, they're like you don't want to relax, like it's stressful for them.
You're like a child.
Like, and that's what we're fighting. And that's what we're fighting for as artists. I think we're fighting for new air. It's like, you know, when a crowd of people are on top of you and you're trying to get out and get, you know, fresh air. That's what we're doing. We're trying to create a space where there's new air and there's a new breath for the people who don't have the opportunity to see that or to feel that. You know, and that's what my work is trying to do. Is like there is another way of moving in the world or seeing. There's a new way of seeing or being, listening, hearing. And yeah, that's the fight.
I think that's often tends to be the role of artists, to kind of like be the voice of the people who are somewhat voiceless.
I don't think the artist is the voice of the people. The artist is we're clearing a path. It's like, okay, this is an option. This is what I see, and this is where I think we should go. This is where I think this is why I think is a better way forward. And you know, if you're on that, you're on that. If you believe it, you believe it, and you go that way. And if you know, it's like, you know, before the automobile, there was the people who were riding horses. You know, the car didn't have to be what we're in. It could be something else.
I just think when you're in the creative world, I feel like you're very like polarizing way more than like a doctor would be to people. Just based off what the things you makes them feel inside.
Exactly.
You know, it's like we look back at Nigerians and everyone's like, oh, fella changed this, fella changed that. No one's even thinking about, oh, this doctor or this. It's like the most important voices of people who created like a lot of change are usually like creatives.
Yeah, because they see it. They see differently. We have our perspective. We've been blessed with the gift of sight, I think. You know, and it would be a disservice. And like at the end of the day, the question is like, why should anyone care about what an artist has to say? You shouldn't, you know. And if it speaks to you, then that's when you should care. No one's forcing you to care about what we've got to say or what we're doing. But if the perspective that we have or the vision that we have is strong enough and makes you feel, then you know.
I think I was always very interested in like the topic of sex in Nigeria because I felt like it was very like no one really spoke about it.
Very taboo.
But in my household, like we would call my mom, "Oh, you look sexy." Like it was like, "Oh, you're beautiful," you know. And so
my grandma was
that's what I'm saying. Like I didn't really. It wasn't like that in my household.
That's wicked.
And then I went to school and we were like doing Mother's Day cards and I was like, "Happy Mother's Day to my sexy mom." know. And my teacher like was like, whoa, like, yeah, and I was like, I don't really know what's wrong with that. Because it was like, and then that's when I fully understood like, oh wait, this is like a thing. So I feel like throughout my art, I've always been interested in like pushing that boundary of like, you know, what part of skin you want to show. Because even growing up in Nigeria, it's like, oh, my grandma would be like, Puyo, this up. And I'm just like, why do I always have to like cover myself for someone else? Because regardless of whatever I'm wearing, like, if you want to assault someone, you're going to do it. And I feel like the conversation of like, rather than telling the girl how to dress, like we should be talking about the actions that we don't, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, you're all right in the sense of that, but I feel like the two types of Nigerians. There are the ones who grew up with families who were kind of like a bit free and let them express themselves, and there's some people who had to fight for that freedom of expression. You know, like my dad's like a reverend, and I kind of grew up in a very strict household. And then by watching several movies, or I don't know if it's in my nature, but I was the only kid who would like leave home and like never come back, and I was the one that set the example of like, okay, I can beat this guy so everyone else can watch. But like sometimes you have to fight for that freedom of expression, and many Nigerians don't really fight for it, but some people do, and I feel like that's when being an artist is important, because I think artists generally, to sit down and be like, I'm going to make clothes or music and make a living from something that might not pay you is quite rebellious in itself. So I think just generally anyone who goes into like the field of arts has something, like she said, a bit polarizing.
You got something to say, man. If you're making art, you have to have something to say, or if not, what are you doing? You're trying to be something else. I think we just have no, as artists, I don't think you have a choice to be an artist. It's just what it is. You know what I mean? And if that's the case, I mean, I grew up in a household where I remember when I told my grandma I wanted to be a musician, and they laughed me out the room. They're like, what? And it's like in a time where, you know, Nigerian music especially there was no money. People that were making, the only person that was making money was like Two-Face. After like African Queen. That was like the only thing that was like popping up. And I walked into the living room, I said to my grandma, a bunch of my uncles, like I was like, yo, I just had a dream. I know exactly what I'm going to be when I grow up. They're like, what is it? I was like, I'm going to be a musician. And they're like, and I was like, you guys wait and see. Now they're like, they always remind me like,
oh, you were saying that.
Like, I told you. It's like, look at me now. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing, is like there's no choice in it. And even if people are trying to, and it's not, and we can't blame our parents for, you know, being the way that they are, because that's what they know. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, they're trying to protect you and trying to make sure that you know, they have your best intentions.
I hate to say it, but you can blame them. I hate to say it, but you can definitely blame them, because I feel like...
No, but you can't, even if you can't blame them, because regardless of what they say, if that's what you're going to do, that's what you're going to do
regardless.
And you're going to prove them wrong. So anyone can say anything about, you know, don't be this, don't be that, don't be this. Who cares?
I guess some people are weaker than others, or like some people...
But then they're not artists.
Some people would be like, I don't know, I feel like everyone has like really hard like environments that they deal with. Like, maybe for some, they thought if I was going to do that, maybe I would actually get killed by someone in my family. Like,
but then you're not an artist then. Like, I don't think if you're not really an artist.
Maybe they're not an artist yet. Maybe one day in their
exactly.
But I want to ask you whether you feel that within your specific industries that you're working and do you feel like you've had to rebel against anything within your specific industries, whether that's in Nigeria or whether that's in the UK? What have you had to fight against that you think might be specific to music or fashion or art?
Oh, hell yeah. Like I think art, I didn't know about the other industries as much, but I think art is the hardest one to break in. Because if you're a black artist, you could easily be seen as a token of diversity. And you have all these institutions that are predominantly white, and like all the families that have the most money that collect works are like whites, and you know, so it's either to see you as a token or like a mascot, or like they just see you as an African or black artist painting black people.
There's an idea of you before it gets to you
make
and
the
your
work.
work. Yeah.
At least with music, you don't need to see the person when you hear the sound. Like it's like you don't even Michael Jackson. Like you, all my life I thought it was white. So I didn't know he was black. And with fashion, it's like everyone wants to express themselves like clothes. So it doesn't matter the designer per se. It's just the message. But with art, the artist or where they come from is quite like the forefront. And like again, the art world is very, very white dominated. So it's really, really hard to break in. So like for me, it's been and it always will be a challenge. But yeah.
And how do you guys feel in terms of music and fashion? Have you felt any sort of pushback, or do you feel you've sort of been welcomed?
I had even been pushed back with myself because I felt like, I love creating like anything and everything, but I felt like, I chose fashion, so I have to do fashion.
Yeah.
And then I would see people like, Kanye do fashion when he's doing music. I'm like, why are you doing fashion? Like, you did music. And I was like, oh wait, like, you mean I could just do whatever I want to do? And I was like, oh shit, like, okay, I'm gonna do art, I'm gonna do fashion, I'm gonna do music, and I just like became way more free. But then when I had all those freedoms, I felt like, if I put all my energy into this thing, I'm like forgetting about this thing. But I like fashion, but it's not something I want to like live and breathe every day. I think it's not fulfilling enough for me. I feel like I love film, I love like a lot of other things. So I've had to like figure out how I was gonna create and live my life that works for me rather than like the industry I'm in, you know? Because they'd be like, oh, you need to do 2 shows a year. And I'm like, I don't really want to, you know? So I've had to just like sit back, take time, and then try things, fail at things, but still like make sure if I'm good, that's what matters to me. So, yeah.
And Obi, what about you in music?
I mean, music is hilarious because it's like people have an expectation of what a Nigerian artist is, or like what a Nigerian artist is, or an African artist should sound like. So that expectation when they hear my music is like, I don't really know what this is. Like, we call it Afrobeat, which is calm. You call my music whatever you want to call it, but I'm just like, it's so lazy. It's like, how lazy can you be to just not? There's so many reference points of what, you know, and of what African music has been prior to what I'm doing. And it's like, I don't really care too tough about it because I'm just going to do what I'm going to do anyway. But it's like, it's just when I read certain things about, or people trying to describe what my music is, or when they try to put certain labels on it, I'm just like, that's just boring. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just grow up. You know what I'm saying? Grow up, basically. So I guess I'm not necessarily fighting because it doesn't really matter. I'm not trying to be like, no, but this is this. I'm not trying to argue or have a debate with anyone about what my thing is or what it is I'm doing or why it should be looked at a certain way, because who cares, man?
I feel like it'll drain you.
It will, exactly. And it takes away from what I'm doing, or like, or the reason I'm doing what I'm doing, and you know, so let them fight with themselves.
So like there's one thing my dad used to tell me is like your name precedes who you are. Like there's a pride in having a name, because like, for example, if your name is, let's say, something like Chukwudubelum, it's like God follows you and it precedes like who you are. So I think whilst I was in Lagos, again, growing up with my parents talking about like Biafra and like the wars, and having like my driver who was like a child soldier, it was quite easy for me to only think about like war, like, or think about like the effects of war and how like everything in Nigeria is kind of centered around like violence. You know, the police are very, you know, they carry guns, and like, especially if you grow up in like some areas, you kind of see these things. I had an interaction with like a military man when I was like around 16, and I was wearing like a camouflage piece my auntie from America sent to me. And this military man came and they told me to take it off like there and then. And it was confusing. Like they kept me there for like 2-3 hours. And this is why I mean, you can blame people, because it was very ignorant. Like I am a 17-year-old boy, I don't even know what you're talking about, but they had to make a point that I couldn't do something because I was a civilian. So fast forward to me coming to the UK and kind of seeing that like, you know, you are allowed to wear like certain items of clothing. So I took the moniker up not to kind of like embrace like war, but to kind of like embrace the rebelliousness of it, because I feel like the world we live in is kind of built on the foundation of like war and, you know, violence. You know, that's why they use terms like post-war artist.
Of course, yeah.
And I feel like I'm kind of standing not with war as a concept, but against it, and like using that name as a form of rebelliousness or rebellion. Yeah, that's the, you know, name. That's why I have the name.
And I think obviously these artists were living in an entirely different political context to ours, but there was still that sense of, or we still have that sense of like, we are fighting for our rights as young people, kind of fighting against the government and the military and whatever. And with the most recent kind of movement, I suppose, being NSAS.
Yeah, of course.
How, as artists or even just as people, did that movement affect you and the way you work?
I mean, personally, all my life, I would say as a Nigerian kid, personally for me, just based on like the situation I was born into, all my life I had to kind of like fight. If it's no sickness, it's like no having food in the house, it's like being beaten by my seniors in school. Like there was always one battle after the other. So I think the NSAS thing was just like, for many Nigerians, it was actually a walk in the park. I hate to say it.
What do you mean? It actually was in Lagos.
Yeah, when it
during
happened.
that time, like leading up to it, and like I think the energy was really beautiful because a lot of people were finally coming together to like finally like be like, no, we're taking a stand, which never really happens.
Yeah,
never happened.
Like I've never seen my parents like protest anything. Like everybody is still
complaining and
Yeah.
they complain, at the dinner table.
So it was just like, it was beautiful seeing the environment like we had created, to protest this thing. Because like we were, like we took over the what's it called?
the toll gates.
The toll gate. And then we were playing music, people were performing, people were like picking up rubbish after themselves. Like it was really beautiful. And then I left like Lagos, like I think like 3 days later. And then that's when they were now like giving the warnings of if anyone comes to protest tonight, then
They're
it's
gonna
like,
start shooting people.
and then we're all like, no, we're gonna keep going because this is the point of what we're trying to do. And then I see on the news all the videos of them actually like killing people who don't even have any kind of like guns or anything. And it was, I was like not okay for like weeks because it was so traumatizing.
It was really
to even watch
Yeah.
and just
horrific.
know that like your government and the army is so okay to just like destroy all these people's lives.
Constantly,
Yeah.
to the
and
point that like that is like,
the NSAS move, back to what Mo was saying, it was beautiful in the sense that we finally stood up for ourselves. But there was, and not to negate what it was, but I wrote a song about because I woke up one morning, in the morning you're talking about where people were getting killed, and that morning I went to the studio, I wrote this song called Message and Hammer about it, because I cried, I was like in bed looking at it and I was crying, I was like, this is messed up, like, because I guess Nigeria, you have this hierarchy. We have there's a hierarchy in how things operate. So it's the government, there's the army, the police, and it's, civilians literally bottom of the food chain. And to see that our government of our own people were willing to kill its own people because they're protesting something that is hot, like, you know what I'm saying, like it was very heartbreaking, and what was also more heartbreaking for me is that after a week or 2 weeks, it's like nothing.
it's done.
Do you know what's crazy?
And that was like, I was like, man, this is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's like it felt like something was about to happen.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's like we're back to normal now. It's,
Yeah.
like it's all good. Do you know what I'm saying? Which kind of sucks.
At
That
the
sucks
end
for
of the
me.
day, everyone was young. They didn't enter the army. They're not soldiers. They were just trying to like
Say something.
bring attention to this thing that was really like affecting their day-to-day life. And it's like, even when I would speak to my parents about it, it was almost like we were in two different worlds, because I was expressing to them the things we'd go through, like you just on your way to like go see your friends, and like a SWAT car comes in front of you, jumps out the car with guns, makes you get out the side of the road, checks everything, like just inconveniences you for no reason.
Nothing. And then at the end of the day, like, what's up?
And then my parents, they just didn't really take it seriously. To them, they're like, I'll go and die for this now. Like they were just like,
no, but
they're just out of touch. I'm not even coming for them because I just feel like they've been so far removed of fighting for anything. But they looked at us like, you guys, come on. What do you expect is going to happen? Like,
but the thing is that they were right, because we then reverted back to what they did.
But since then, the toll gate has never been gone back to use. Like it's been like,
It actually feels like more like to be continued. Like
Yeah,
maybe
do you know what I
something.
mean? Something happened at
Something-
least.
yeah,
Do you know what I
of
mean?
course.
But
I agree,
even with all those, that something happened.
Because I think
I
that's
know
another thing that I think that's why I've been fascinated by like the military, because it almost seems like there's complete and absolute power when it comes to like people that have the ability to cause war or use weapons. And hence the reason why I kind of go into the reason why people like really fixate on the fact that like someone with a gun has complete power in a country like Nigeria, or in the world actually, in the wider world in general. But also I feel like people have been rebelling. For example, Fela Kuti was rebelling. In fact, they came to Kalakuta Republic and they threw his mom off the building. It's not the first time.
Yeah.
And I don't think it will be the last time.
They didn't get prosecuted for that.
No, they didn't.
They didn't. Yeah,
No, they did. It's the thing.
After Fela died, you know, there's, I guess, his kids are continuing that lineage. But like, it's like, you know, at the time it was, oh my God, like, things are gonna change and things are gonna change, and there's massive energy around it. But you know, once that person goes, and you know the person at the forefront, a leader type figure, isn't around anymore, it just seems like those things disappear. Do you know what I mean? And that's the part that is heartbreaking to me. And that's why I think our work is important, because what we're doing is pushing against what currently is. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Not necessarily like that it's not necessarily consciously. You know, there's people who are doing that as musicians, like, you know, like Shel Kuti and those guys. Those guys are doing is consciously trying to fight against those systems. But what we're doing, I feel like, is doing the exact same thing, but in a way that shows that, you know, the kids in Nigeria who grew up the way I grew up, with no exposure to nothing, that this is possible. Yeah. I don't have to live like this. I don't have to hide my form of expression. I don't need to. I can make this because this is possible. Did it. Yeah. I mean, I can make work like Soja. I can make work like Moa. I mean, that's the fight. Yeah. And that's what, you know. I guess that's the point of modernism, is to show, like, okay, cool, I can do that. I really like that. I've never seen that before. A Nigerian made that. An African person made that. I'm going to make that, or add myself into the thing I'm making, and you know, and I guess that's just the core of it. You know, it's like you know, and that's why we should keep making what we're making, and not trying to conform to what the idea of what African music should be, or like African art should be, or African fashion should be. Like, what the does that even mean, bro? Like, no one ever says English fashion or English art.
It's just fashion.
I'm saying English music. What are you talking about, bro? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just music. Yeah. You know, and why are we different? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? We're part of this thing, but because of who we are and our cultures, our style is different. Yeah. Our walk is different. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's what we should be celebrated for, and not, you know, put in this box. Like, okay, this is what you should be doing. Yeah. You know?
I hear it.
I wish we get to a point where, like, artists don't feel like they have to even leave Nigeria in order to be successful.
Japa. Japa.
Yeah, but for me, it was like, when I was studying art in Lagos, like, I would be so into it and even do more than I'm supposed to. And my teacher would just be like, you're too new. Like, they didn't care about it as much as I cared about, like, in my school. So my mom was just like, you gotta go, like. Yeah. And like, thank God for that, but that's not everyone's reality. It's like, I had the privilege to be able to go to school in England because my grandma was Scottish and I had a British passport. But like, being able to go somewhere that I got to like foster that time to figure out who I was and an artist was really important for me. And I think also being able to like travel around and just see different realities was also really important for me. Yeah. You know, I don't think it's like, it's a road everyone has to take, but I feel like we do need to, people should be allowed to move a lot more freely than is the case right now. And that's why I don't like. I feel like some people try years and years and years for a visa, and they don't get the opportunity, and then you have someone else who's like, has the visa and they're just in London, like going to the club. I'm not even, you know, spending daddy's money in the club, not really like trying to like affect any kind of change in their life. You know, so it's like, looking at it is kind of like crazy. But I feel like what I want to do is actually kind of make more like communities in Lagos where like people can come together and actually like
express
learn and create with each other, and also it'd be like a platform, you know, where they can also stand on a global stage, but it'd be Nigeria, because like now everyone's coming over for like Dirty December, and it's like it's like if we use this opportunity to like show something bigger than like, you know, us, just the club.
I have no problem with, you know what, I hate to say this, I have no problem with the Western tradition or like Western form of thinking, like abstraction or like films and music. My problem is the gatekeeping of cultures through like passports and immigration and the government.
Yeah.
I feel like as human beings, we're meant to interact. Like me and a white person could have a normal conversation and should, but I feel like there's this, you know, fight for power that makes it very uneven. I feel like human beings are meant to mix, and we're meant to you're meant to go somewhere like the mountains in India, you're meant to learn something new. But if there is like a structure that tells you that you cannot, and if the other people are looking at you as an enemy, then that's when it becomes a problem. Because this works were made as an amalgamation of like both the UK and like British culture and Western traditions and African ones. But the problem is like it's hard because of two sides of seeing each other as like the oppressed and the oppressor, but it should be an even ground.
My grandma met my grandpa in like Oxford, because she's from Scotland and he was in Oxford from Nigeria, like studying. And then they fell in love and she moved to Nigeria. And it's like there'd be no me if he wasn't able to
that wasn't able to be that exchange.
And study, and it's like just that impact of like what me being alive and being free to create has also led to other things happening. It's like that like gate of like you can't come. It's so crazy.
It's so nuts.
You know, because we've grown up seeing all these people come into Africa,
take
and
everything.
then now you're like you can't come. And I'm just like it's pretty sick. Yeah, and I'm like it's not like I'm like I am kind of upset actually. I feel like I'm disappointed. I'm just disappointed in the lack of like empathy that people have.
People give.
You know, because it's like that being able to move and travel does help a lot.
Should be a human right thing.
The exposure is important, man. Like the exposure for me is when I moved to London for the first time, like 17, 18. I remember the first thing I just wanted to do was go on the internet, because we didn't have internet growing up. You have to go to like cyber cafes and like
it's like 10 minutes.
Crazy times. Crazy times. And I remember the first time I went on YouTube and I was just searching Kanye West, like Lil Wayne. I'd really just J. Cole. I was finally listening to all the things I couldn't listen to, and I like immersed myself in I guess that the availability of all of these things, like the access was just so brilliant to me. Like I was able to go on webs, like all these like blogs at the time, and like reading, you know, like I was so, the world opened up to me. Whereas when I was in Nigeria, I just didn't have access to those things. So I think a lot of people, maybe it's changing now because, you know, things are you know, the internet is a lot more accessible in Nigeria and Africa. But when I was growing up, that just wasn't the case. So I think a big part of traveling over or being able to have access to these places is the exposure to it. You know what I mean? Or you know, and it also seeing other ways of thinking and being in conversations that just wouldn't happen, getting out of your bubble basically. You know, and having conversations with people of different cultures that might think differently to you. You might not agree, or they might not agree with you, but that conversation is important for how you then see the world, or it also really helps with your perspective. So I think that's important. It really helped me, you know, like I didn't really get into Fela Kuti until I went to university in Norwich. Places. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and my friends who worked in the shop that I worked at were playing the Fela Kuti like funk, you know, high life stuff. And I was like, hold on, these motherfuckers are African. Like, all you white boys are out here listening to going crazy in the club to these people. Like, this is sick. This is where I'm from, and why am I trying to? Because there was a point where I was rapping, and I was rapping in an American accent. So why am I trying to be something else? You know.
Often when I'm interviewing artists, they talk about making work for their younger self, for example. But I wonder, do you think?
Bullshit.
Well, they tend to say, oh, it's something I would have wanted to see, or something I would have wanted to listen to when I was a child. But yeah, what for you? Who are you making your work for?
I think my work for myself, you know, sorry, I didn't mean, they're probably capping on that side, but like, you know, to each his own. I think the work is from me for the world. I mean, I'm not making music for a specific audience. It's from me, it's of me. And then once it's out of me, it exists in the world. And that's whoever picks it up, picks it up. And that's what I believe. I don't think you're making work with specific, what are you, that's gatekeeping.
Yeah,
you're gatekeeping an idea. It's like you found Narnia, and then like only you guys can get in. It's like, you know, I guess the 1%, the billionaire people.
I mean, sometimes you do make stuff just for you. Sometimes you might make like a song that it's not like you made it to share with everyone.
No, but
it might
it's
just
from
be
you.
something you want to.
But that's what I'm saying. It's from me. But if someone picks it up, you know, whatever they take from it, it's up to them. It's already because you put it out.
I feel like sometimes I'm really like narcissistic with my art because I'm just very much thinking about myself, like what I went through and how I want to kind of like express it and like kind of shed. And then there's other times where I'm thinking about, I'm like looking at the world and everything that's happening, and I'm like wanting to spark some kind of conversation. I just understand why people think the certain way they do. So it's like when I did that nigga shirt, I was just trying to understand like. Because I've always had this thing where with my fashion, I would just see it as I can create whatever I want. But then they'd be like, oh, you can't have this, you can't have that. But then I see in film, they can kill people in film, they can do this in film. But with my art, it's so like limiting. So I did that just to be like, what's the difference of having that on a shirt versus like hearing it in a song or like, you know? And then people would still not be able to understand
I love that shirt.
It's like, exactly, but because to me it's more than just like,
I think it's brilliant.
You know, I feel like.
Didn't a similar thing happen with like the bullet hole dress? Yeah. Do we not?
Let's go talk about the things that happen.
I think that the point that you're making is very important because it's your art, it's your form of expression. If an artist was doing that in their work on a canvas or whatever, no one is going to say you can't do that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to fashion, it's slightly different perhaps.
I mean, but because of, I feel like everything is changing right now. Again, I don't think we're in the modernist era. I think we're in the contemporary era. And from the moment Duchamp got a toilet and wrote his name and put that in the gallery, there was like a change in the way people see things.
So we're reaching the end of our discussion. And I wanted to ask about future generations of Nigerian creatives. So I know that maybe you're not always thinking about who exactly is going to consume your work, but if someone was to engage with your practice, what would you want people to inherit from you? You can say nothing, but hopefully something.
Start with you.
Why are you hating on me?
Go ahead.
Like I said earlier, it's like it's from me and for the world. So whatever you take from it, you take from it. If you don't take anything from it, that's peace be unto you. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't do it to do anything. My practice of what I do is to create to create a new air, new beauty. Do you know what I'm saying? That is what I want to do. And if someone picks that up for what I do, then that's what I want. I'd like them to see. But if they don't, it's also that's fine. You don't go care about it. It is what it is.
I would just say I just want people to do what they want to do. Like, period.
And Soldier?
I feel like if someone from like 30 something, whatever, comes and look at my work, I just hope it could inspire them to maybe create something new. Or just, again, like what she said, do whatever they want to do. No function. No function. No function.
Brilliant.
What?
Brilliant.
Right.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you guys very much. That was really, I think it got into it went places
This is very Nigerian.
that I didn't think it would go.
It's so Nigerian.
I'm like,
that's one Nigerian table conversation.
And it's been wonderful. It's made me think about so many things. There's been a lot of memory, a lot of childhood, a lot of hope, I think, for the future as well. And thank you all
for having us.
taking your time.
Thank you so much.
We should start a podcast.
Just start,
What's wrong with you guys?